Gabriel Martinez and his 5 friends, Emily, Michael, Sarah, David, and Jessica, were avid hikers who loved exploring the great outdoors. They had embarked on numerous adventurous trips together, but little did they know that their next hiking expedition would be their most terrifying one yet. They had planned a weekend camping trip deep in the heart of the secluded Pinnacrist Forest. The group arrived at their chosen campsite, a picturesque clearing surrounded by towering trees. The sun was beginning to set, casting long shadows over the rugged terrain. As night fell, the campfire crackled, casting flickering shadows on the surrounding trees. The atmosphere was filled with excitement and anticipation as they settled into their individual tents. However, their peaceful night under the stars soon took a chilling turn. Sometime after midnight, Gabriel was jolted awake by a peculiar sound. It was a low, guttural growl that echoed through the forest. His heart raced, and he strained his ears to listen more closely. The sound was accompanied by eerie whispers, like voices carried by the wind. Fear gripped Gabriel as he realized that everyone else in the camp must have heard the noises too. He mustered the courage to unzip his tent and peek outside. The forest was cloaked in darkness, and an ominous silence hung heavy in the air. Gabriel called out to his friends, but their fearful whispers were the only response he received. Unable to sleep, Gabriel spent the rest of the night crouched inside his tent, his mind racing with thoughts of what could be lurking outside. The night seemed endless, filled with inexplicable noises that echoed through the trees. As the first rays of dawn peeked over the horizon, a sense of relief washed over Gabriel. He emerged from his tent, cautiously surveying the campsite. What he discovered sent a chill down his spine. The ground was littered with lifeless bodies of birds, their feathers scattered in a macabre display. The once vibrant and lively creatures now lay motionless, their eyes glazed over. It was a grisly sight, one that filled the air with a sense of foreboding. Gabriel's heart sank as he realized that one of their group was missing. Panic consumed him as he desperately searched for Jessica, fearing the worst. The eerie silence was shattered by a blood-curdling scream from the depths of the forest. Following the sound, Gabriel and his friends stumbled upon a gruesome sight. There, hanging from a gnarled tree branch, was Jessica. Her lifeless body swayed gently in the breeze, her eyes closed in eternal darkness. A rope was tightly wound around her neck, leaving no doubt as to the cause of her demise. The shock and grief enveloped the group as they stared in disbelief at the tragic scene before them. The sense of terror intensified as they realized that they were not alone. They were being watched, stalked by an unseen presence that reveled in their fear. Determined to unravel the mystery and find answers, Gabriel and his remaining friends knew that their lives would never be the same again. Devastated by the loss of Jessica and gripped with fear, Gabriel and his friends decided to pack up their campsite and retreat from the ominous forest. They knew they had to find help and bring justice to their fallen friend. As they made their way back along the treacherous trail, a thick fog rolled in, engulfing the surroundings. Visibility diminished, and the atmosphere grew even more sinister. Every step felt heavier, as if the forest itself was trying to hold them back. The group stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin nestled deep within the trees. Desperate for refuge and answers, they cautiously approached the decaying structure. The door creaked open, revealing a chilling interior filled with dust-covered furniture and faded photographs. Amongst the photographs, one caught Gabriel's eye. It depicted a group of hikers who bore a striking resemblance to his own group, standing in the exact spot where they had camped the previous night. The date on the back of the photograph sent a shiver down his spine. It was taken 30 years ago. The realization struck Gabriel like a bolt of lightning. They were not the first group to experience the horrors of this forest. A dark history was buried within its depths, waiting to be unraveled. Driven by a mixture of fear and determination, Gabriel and his remaining friends embarked on a relentless quest to uncover the truth behind the haunting of Pinecrest Forest. They delved into the archives of local newspapers, searching for any records of strange occurrences or disappearances. Their efforts unearthed a chilling story from 3 decades ago. A group of hikers had vanished without a trace in the very same forest. The only clue left behind was a single photograph discovered near the site of their camp, depicting their terrified faces. The group stumbled upon the legend of the forest's dark entity, an ancient spirit said to have been disturbed by human intrusion. It was believed that the entity fed on fear and despair, preying upon unsuspecting hikers who dared to venture into its domain. Armed with this knowledge, Gabriel and his friends devised a plan to confront the malevolent force. They gathered ancient artifacts and performed a ritual, hoping to appease the vengeful spirit and put an end to its reign of terror. With the ritual complete, the forest seemed to exhale a collective sigh. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the shadows that once plagued the woods began to recede. The evil entity, appeased by the offering, finally found peace, releasing its grip on the cursed forest. Gabriel and his friends, battered and scarred, emerged from the forest with a newfound appreciation for life. They had faced unimaginable horrors and survived. Jessica's memory stayed with them as a reminder of the price they had paid and the darkness they had overcome. News of their harrowing ordeal spread, and the Pinecrest Forest gained a reputation as a place haunted by tragedy and the supernatural. Hikers and adventurers steered clear, heeding the warning of the forest's malevolent past. Gabriel and his friends, forever changed by their encounter, formed a bond that would withstand the test of time. They became advocates for hiker safety, sharing their story to prevent others from falling victim to the horrors of Pinecrest Forest. As the years passed, the legend of the haunted forest lived on, whispered around campfires, and passed down through generations. And while the forest's secrets remained buried, Gabriel and his friends found solace in the knowledge that they had confronted darkness head-on and emerged with their spirits unbroken. Dan stood at the trailhead, his hiking backpack snugly fitted on his shoulders. The crisp morning air filled his lungs as he gazed at the towering trees that loomed ahead. He was excited to embark on this adventure with his friends, Alex, Sarah, and Mark. They had meticulously planned the hike, choosing a remote and untouched trail in the heart of a dense forest. The group set off, their footsteps echoing through the silence of the woods. The path wound its way deeper into the wilderness, and the surroundings grew more captivating with every step. Nature's symphony of rustling leaves and chirping birds provided a soothing soundtrack to their journey. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they stumbled upon an abandoned campsite. Torn tents and scattered belongings hinted at a hasty departure. Intrigued, Dan approached the site cautiously, hoping to find a clue about its previous occupants. Just as he picked up a weathered journal, a shiver ran down his spine. It felt as though invisible eyes were watching him from the shadows. Ignoring the unsettling feeling, Dan called out to his friends, who were exploring nearby. Their enthusiasm for the hike had not waned despite the eerie discovery. They decided to continue along the trail, with the abandoned campsite a lingering mystery in the back of their minds. Hours passed, and fatigue started to set in. The group took a break near a babbling brook, refreshing themselves with the cool water. They exchanged stories and laughter, momentarily forgetting the uneasiness that hung in the air. Little did they know that their cheerful banter was soon to be shattered. As dusk settled upon the forest, the woods transformed into an ethereal realm, cloaked in shadows. The once comforting sounds of nature now seemed distorted, making Dan's heart race. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. Panic spread through the group like wildfire. They scrambled to their feet, their eyes scanning the darkened surroundings for any sign of danger. Within moments, they realized that Sarah was missing. Fear gripped their hearts as they called out for her, their voices echoing through the silent forest. The only response was the haunting echo of their own voices. Frantically, they retraced their steps, searching for any trace of Sarah, but she seemed to have vanished without a trace. With heavy hearts, Dan, Alex, and Mark pressed on, hoping against hope that Sarah would somehow find her way back to them. But deep down, they couldn't ignore the sinking feeling that something sinister lurked in the depths of the forest. The forest became an oppressive presence as Dan, Alex, and Mark continued their hike, their minds clouded with worry and grief. Every rustle in the underbrush, every shadow dancing among the trees, seemed to be a harbinger of danger. The group's once jubilant spirit had turned into a desperate fight for survival. As they trekked further into the heart of the forest, unease gnawed at their minds. It felt as though an invisible force was hurting them deeper, guiding them towards an unknown fate. Whispers of caution and fear passed between them, but they knew they had to push forward. Night fell once again, and the darkness seemed impenetrable. Their flashlights illuminated only a fraction of the surrounding landscape, leaving them vulnerable to the lurking dangers. They huddled together, seeking solace in each other's presence, finding fleeting comfort in their diminishing numbers. The forest seemed to conspire against them, obscuring the trail and distorting their sense of direction. With each passing moment, the fear intensified, and their trust in the once familiar surroundings eroded. They stumbled upon another abandoned campsite, eerily similar to the one they had encountered earlier. This time, fear paralyzed them, as the possibility of the same fate befalling them became all too real. An oppressive silence settled over the group as they dared not speak, fearing that their voices would attract the attention of whatever malevolence lay hidden within the forest. The trees whispered ancient secrets, and the wind carried ghostly echoes, heightening their terror. Suddenly, a faint cry broke the stillness of the night. It was Sarah's voice, feeble and desperate. A surge of hope coursed through Dan's veins as he led the others in the direction of her call. The forest seemed to resist their progress, its branches clawing at their faces and its roots tangling around their ankles. But their determination fueled their steps. Finally, they stumbled upon a clearing, bathed in an ethereal moonlight. Sarah stood at its center, her face etched with a mix of relief and horror. Before she could utter a word, a chilling wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing their flashlights. Darkness enveloped them, leaving them vulnerable and disoriented. In the pitch-black abyss, a sinister presence materialized. Unearthly whispers echoed around them, their voices cold and foreboding. The group huddled together, clinging to the last vestiges of hope, as the entity closed in on them. A deafening silence descended upon the forest, followed by a series of sickening thuds and agonized cries. One by one, Dan's friends were mercilessly silenced, their lives extinguished in an instant. He was left alone, surrounded by the chilling stillness of death. Fear and grief fueled Dan's fight for survival. He ran blindly through the forest, tripping over roots and crashing through thick underbrush. Desperation coursed through his veins, urging him to escape the clutches of the malevolent force that had claimed the lives of his friends. Hours turned into days as Dan traversed the seemingly endless expanse of the forest. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, exhaustion weighed him down, but the will to survive pushed him forward. Finally, he stumbled upon a park ranger's station, his body battered and his mind haunted. Dan's tale of horror was met with skepticism and disbelief. The forest he described held no records of the abandoned campsites or the sinister entity that stalked its depths. He was dismissed as delusional, left to carry the burden of his experiences alone. Years passed, but the memories of that fateful hike remained etched in Dan's mind. The forest had claimed the lives of his friends, leaving him scared and haunted. The truth of that night would forever remain a mystery, locked within the depths of the woods that had become his personal hell. As for the forest, it stood silent and indifferent, its secrets buried deep within its ancient heart, waiting for the next unsuspecting souls to venture into its dark embrace. Sam's heart raced as he watched his parents' car disappear down the street. They were leaving for a weekend getaway, leaving him home alone for the first time. At 15 years old, Sam felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. His parents had entrusted him with the responsibility of taking care of the house, but little did they know that this weekend would turn into a nightmare. As the evening sun began to set, Sam decided to distract himself from the eerie silence of the empty house. He turned on the TV and tried to enjoy a movie, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Each creak and rustle in the house sent shivers down his spine. He tried to convince himself that it was just his imagination, but he couldn't shake the uneasiness. After a while, Sam's attention was drawn to a soft scratching sound coming from upstairs. His heart pounded in his chest as he mustered up the courage to investigate. Slowly, he climbed the stairs, his steps as quiet as possible. The sound grew louder as he approached his parents' bedroom. With a trembling hand, Sam pushed the door open. The room was pitch black, and the scratching sound continued. He reached for the light switch, but just as he was about to turn it on, the noise abruptly stopped. Sam's heart raced even faster as he stood frozen in the darkness, the weight of the unknown bearing down on him. Feeling the surge of adrenaline, Sam switched on the light. The room was empty, and there was no sign of what had caused the scratching sound. He felt a mix of relief and confusion. Maybe it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. Sam shook off the uneasiness and went back downstairs, determined to enjoy his evening alone. Hours passed, and Sam's fears subsided as he distracted himself with video games and snacks. However, as midnight approached, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. Sam jumped up from the couch, his heart pounding once again. He cautiously made his way to the source of the noise. The kitchen was a mess. Shattered plates and broken glass covered the floor, and the cupboards were left open. Sam's mind raced, trying to find an explanation. Had an intruder broken in? But why would they make such a mess and then vanish? Sam grabbed a broom and started cleaning up the mess, trying to calm himself down. As he swept up the broken pieces, he noticed something strange. Among the shards of glass, he found a small piece of torn fabric, dark and unfamiliar. Sam's unease returned, and he couldn't help but wonder who or what had been in his house. Sam's mind raced with possibilities as he held the torn piece of fabric in his hands. He couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was happening in his home. Determined to get to the bottom of it, he decided to investigate further. The next morning, Sam woke up early with a newfound sense of determination. He began scouring the house for any more clues that might shed light on the mysterious events of the previous night. As he searched, he stumbled upon a half-opened window in the basement. It hadn't been left that way, and Sam's heart sank with the realization that someone had entered the house. With a mixture of fear and courage, Sam descended into the dimly lit basement. Every shadow seemed to play tricks on his mind, making him question what was real and what was just his imagination. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, urging him to turn back, but he pressed on. As he reached the storage area, Sam's heart stopped. There, in the corner, was a makeshift bed made of old blankets and pillows. It was evident that someone had been living in the basement. Panic surged through his veins as he realized just how vulnerable he had been while he slept. With trembling hands, Sam pulled out his phone and dialed the police. He explained the situation, emphasizing the urgency of the matter. The dispatcher assured him that help was on the way and advised him to stay in a safe location until they arrived. Sam hurriedly made his way upstairs, locking all the doors and windows along the way. He barricaded himself in his room, feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety. The minutes felt like hours as he anxiously waited for the police to arrive. Suddenly, he heard a noise from downstairs. It was a soft but distinct footstep. His heart pounding in his chest, Sam realized that whoever had been living in his basement was still in the house. Panic took over, and he frantically searched for a place to hide. His eyes landed on the closet, and he quickly slipped inside, shutting the door behind him. From the darkness, Sam strained to listen, praying that the intruder would leave the house without finding him. Minutes turned into an agonizing eternity as Sam waited in the suffocating darkness of the closet. He could hear the intruder moving around, their footsteps growing louder and closer. Sam's mind raced, trying to come up with a plan. Should he call out for help? Should he stay silent and hope for the best? Just as Sam was about to make a decision, the closet door creaked open. He held his breath, his entire body trembling with fear. A beam of light pierced the darkness, revealing the silhouette of a tall figure standing just outside. "Sam," a familiar voice called out, breaking the tension. It was Officer Johnson, one of the responding police officers. Relief flooded through Sam's veins as he realized that help had finally arrived. Officer Johnson apprehended the intruder, who turned out to be a homeless man seeking shelter in empty houses. Sam's parents were notified, and they hurried back home to comfort their shaken son. The incident served as a reminder of the importance of home security and the potential dangers that could lurk even in familiar surroundings. From that day forward, Sam's sense of safety in his own home was forever altered. The once comforting walls now held a lingering unease. But as time passed, and with the support of his family, Sam found solace in the knowledge that he had overcome a frightening experience and emerged stronger. Though he would never forget the terror of being home alone, Sam grew wiser and more resilient. He became vigilant about his surroundings, ensuring his safety and that of his loved ones. And while the memories of that harrowing weekend would forever remain, they served as a reminder of the power of courage and the strength that lies within us all. It was a cold and rainy night, and Claire's parents had left her alone in their large old house. They had to attend an urgent family matter out of town and wouldn't be back until the next day. Claire was 15 years old, but the thought of spending a night alone in that old house made her nervous. As the evening crept in, Claire found herself feeling increasingly uneasy. The creaking floors and flickering lights added to her growing sense of unease. She decided to distract herself by watching a movie, hoping it would take her mind off the eerie atmosphere. She settled on a horror film, thinking it would be a good way to face her fears head-on. Minutes turned into hours, and the movie ended, leaving Claire even more on edge. She tried to brush off her uneasiness and convinced herself that it was just her imagination playing tricks. However, as she made her way to the kitchen for a glass of water, she noticed something strange. The back door was slightly ajar. Her heart skipped a beat, and she could feel a chill run down her spine. She was sure she had locked the door before her parents left. Claire's mind raced with possibilities. Could someone have broken into the house? She considered calling the police, but the rational part of her brain urged her to investigate first before panicking. With cautious steps, Claire pushed open the door and peered into the darkness. The rain poured heavily outside, creating a disconcerting symphony of eerie sounds. She summoned her courage and ventured outside, holding a flashlight in her trembling hand. The rain-soaked backyard was empty, but Claire couldn't shake off the feeling that she was being watched. She decided to lock the door and retreat back inside, her heart pounding in her chest. Every creak and shuffle within the house seemed amplified in the silence. As Claire locked the door, a faint noise caught her attention. It was a soft thud coming from upstairs. Her heart raced as she realized that someone, or something, was in the house with her. She crept up the stairs, her flashlight casting an eerie glow on the hallway walls. Every shadow seemed to come alive, playing tricks on her eyes. She reached her bedroom door and held her breath, listening for any further sounds. The thumping resumed, growing louder and more frequent. It was coming from her parents' room. Claire pushed open the door, and her blood ran cold. The room was in disarray, clothes scattered across the floor, drawers pulled open. But what terrified her the most was the figure she saw, a tall, shadowy silhouette standing near the window. She stifled a scream, covering her mouth with her hand. The intruder turned slowly, revealing a chilling smile. It was a man she had never seen before, his eyes filled with an unsettling intensity. Claire's mind raced as she tried to come up with an escape plan, her heart pounding in her chest. Before she could make a move, the man lunged toward her, his long fingers reaching out. Claire stumbled backward, narrowly avoiding his grasp, and sprinted toward the stairs. Panic consumed her as she raced down, each step echoing through the empty house. Claire's adrenaline-fueled flight led her to the kitchen, where she hoped to find something to defend herself. She scanned the room in a frantic search, her mind racing to come up with a plan to escape this terrifying intruder. Her hands trembled as she grabbed a sharp knife from the drawer. With the knife clutched tightly in her hand, Claire's fear transformed into a determined resolve. She couldn't let this man catch her. She knew she had to find a way out and seek help, but as she approached the front door, a realization struck her. The intruder had locked it from the inside. Claire's heart sank. She was trapped. Panic welled up within her as she considered her options. Desperate for a way out, she rushed toward the living room, hoping to find an open window or another exit. As she reached the room, she noticed something odd, the sound of music. She followed the eerie melody that seemed to float through the air, leading her deeper into the house. The music grew louder, its haunting tune intertwining with her racing heartbeat. Eventually, she traced the sound to a small door hidden behind a bookshelf. Summoning her courage, Claire swung the door open, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. The melody became even more enchanting, as if beckoning her forward. Hesitant but determined, she descended into the depths, her every step accompanied by the haunting music. The staircase seemed to go on forever, descending deeper into an unknown abyss. Finally, she reached the bottom and found herself in a dimly lit chamber. The music ceased abruptly, leaving her in silence. As her eyes adjusted to the dimness, Claire realized that the chamber was filled with countless antique dolls. Their glassy eyes stared at her, their porcelain faces frozen in haunting expressions. It was a room frozen in time, a place of forgotten childhood memories and lost dreams. Her curiosity mingled with her dread, and she began to explore the eerie collection. As she moved through the room, she noticed something peculiar about the dolls. They seemed to follow her with their gazes. It was as if they were watching her every move, their eyes filled with both longing and malice. As she reached the center of the chamber, a realization hit her. The dolls were a distraction, a trap meant to keep her away from the true horror lurking within the house. Her heart raced as she sprinted back up the narrow staircase, driven by a renewed urgency to escape. Emerging from the secret chamber, Claire was met with an unsettling sight. The intruder stood before her, blocking her path to the front door. He wore a sinister grin, his eyes filled with a deranged excitement. It was a battle of wills, with Claire determined to survive, and the intruder determined to capture her. The sharp knife in Claire's hand trembled as she summoned every ounce of courage within her. She lunged forward, slashing at the intruder with all her strength. But in the struggle, the knife slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. The intruder's eyes glinted with triumph as he advanced toward her. As the intruder closed in on Claire, a surge of desperation fueled her actions. She grabbed the nearest object, a heavy brass candlestick, and swung it with all her might. It connected with the intruder's head, sending him sprawling to the floor. Claire seized the opportunity to scramble away, her heart pounding in her chest. With adrenaline coursing through her veins, Claire raced through the house, searching for any means of escape. The rain outside had intensified, creating a stormy backdrop that seemed to mirror the chaos within the house. She knew she had to find help, but panic threatened to consume her. In her frantic search, Claire stumbled upon a dusty old study. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books and trinkets from a bygone era. But what caught her attention was an antique telephone perched on a mahogany desk. A glimmer of hope sparked within her as she reached for the phone, praying it would still work. She dialed 911, her voice trembling as she explained the dire situation. The operator assured her that help was on the way, but Claire couldn't shake off the feeling that time was running out. She knew she had to find a place to hide until the authorities arrived. In a stroke of luck, Claire remembered the small attic above the house. It was a cramped space filled with dusty boxes and forgotten memories. She hurriedly made her way up the creaky stairs, her mind racing with thoughts of survival. As she entered the attic, she carefully closed the door behind her, concealing herself in the shadows. Her heart pounded in her ears as she strained to hear any signs of the intruder's presence. Time seemed to stretch endlessly, each minute feeling like an eternity. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence, a faint thud coming from the hallway below. Claire's breath caught in her throat as she listened intently. The thuds grew louder, accompanied by heavy footsteps. The intruder was searching for her, his determination unwavering. Fear gnawed at Claire's insides as she desperately searched for a way to protect herself. Among the dusty boxes, she spotted an old baseball bat. She clutched it tightly, her knuckles turning white. It was her last line of defense. The footsteps grew closer, resonating through the ceiling, and then abruptly stopped. Claire held her breath, her senses on high alert. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of her own racing heart. And then, a creaking sound echoed through the attic, a slow, deliberate creak. Claire's blood ran cold as she realized the intruder was climbing the stairs to the attic. She positioned herself, ready to swing the baseball bat with all her might. The door swung open, and the intruder stepped into the attic, his eyes scanning the dimly lit space. Claire's heart pounded in her chest as she summoned her strength. With a surge of determination, she swung the baseball bat, connecting solidly with the intruder's arm. A cry of pain escaped his lips as he stumbled backward, momentarily disoriented. Claire didn't waste a second. She dashed past him, rushing down the stairs and out into the pouring rain. Relief washed over her as she saw the flashing lights of police cars approaching the house. She screamed for help, catching the attention of the officers who quickly apprehended the intruder. Trembling and soaked to the bone, Claire was finally safe. The nightmare was over, but the memory of that harrowing night would forever be etched in her mind. Though shaken by the experience, Claire emerged stronger, knowing she had faced her deepest fears and triumphed. The house, once a place of safety and comfort, now held an air of darkness that would forever haunt her. But she refused to let fear control her life, vowing to create a new sense of security and peace within those familiar walls. Little did she know that the true horrors she had faced that night were just the beginning of an even more twisted and sinister story that awaited her in the days to come. In the days following the terrifying encounter, Claire found herself plagued by unsettling thoughts and lingering paranoia. The sense of security she once felt in her own home had been shattered, replaced by a constant state of vigilance. She couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to the story than what she had experienced. Determined to uncover the truth, Claire delved into her parents' belongings, searching for any clue that could shed light on the events that had transpired. She stumbled upon an old journal, hidden away in her mother's closet. The journal seemed to be filled with cryptic entries, detailing strange occurrences and a deep sense of foreboding. As she read through the entries, a chilling realization dawned upon her. The house had a dark history. It had been the site of unexplained disappearances and mysterious deaths over the years. The journal hinted at a malevolent presence that had plagued the house, feeding on fear and trapping its victims within its walls. Claire's initial encounter with the intruder was just a manifestation of this malevolent force, a mere pawn in its twisted game. The house had chosen her as its latest victim, but she had managed to escape its clutches. For now, driven by a newfound determination, Claire sought out the help of a seasoned investigator, an expert in paranormal phenomena. Together, they embarked on a journey to uncover the secrets of the house and put an end to its reign of terror. Their investigation led them deep into the history of the house, unearthing forgotten stories of tragedy and malevolence. They discovered that the house had once been home to a disturbed individual who had committed unspeakable acts within its walls. His tormented spirit lingered, seeking to inflict the same pain and suffering on those who entered. Armed with this knowledge, Claire and the investigator devised a plan to rid the house of its dark presence once and for all. They performed a ritual, calling upon the forces of light and protection to banish the malevolent spirit from the house. As the ritual reached its climax, a palpable energy filled the air. The house shook, as if resisting the expulsion of its long-held darkness, but the combined strength of Claire's determination and the investigator's expertise proved stronger. A blinding light enveloped the house, dispelling the shadows that had haunted its halls for so long. The dark presence dissipated, leaving behind a sense of peace and relief. The curse that had plagued the house was finally broken. With the threat eliminated, Claire found solace in the knowledge that she had not only saved herself, but had also freed the house from its tormented past. She decided to turn her experience into a force for good, dedicating herself to helping others who had faced similar horrors. Years passed, and Claire's bravery and resilience became an inspiration to many. She shared her story, raising awareness about the dangers of paranormal forces and offering support to those who had encountered them. The house, once a place of nightmares, was eventually transformed into a center for research and healing, a beacon of hope in the face of darkness. Claire's journey had come full circle, and she had found purpose in turning her own terrifying experience into a force for good. Though the memory of that fateful night would forever remain with her, Claire emerged as a survivor, determined to face any challenges that came her way. She had not only reclaimed her sense of security, but had also discovered her own inner strength, a strength that would guide her through the darkest of nights. And as for the house, it stood as a testament to the power of resilience and the triumph of light over darkness. Its walls held secrets of the past, but they also bore witness to the indomitable spirit of those who refused to be defeated.